All right, good evening, everyone. It looks like we have quorum for the meeting. I see Penny, Frank, Tom, Deirdre, Eric, Megan, and myself. I think we're missing Tim Russell. He said he would try to join if he could. But it is 6 o'clock, so I'm going to call the New Hartford Public Schools Board of Education special meeting, 6 p.m. on April 10th, 2025. This is a virtual only meeting. If you would, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'll start again the Board of Education Chair's report. Really, we're meeting today to give the Board of Education an update of the Board of Finance meeting that Jeff and I attended on Tuesday of this past week, and the results of that meeting and what the Board of Education is required to do at this point in time. The summary and the end result of the meeting was that the Board of Finance motioned to cut $66,000 from the Board of Education budget. There was an amendment to that motion to also use $200,000 of the town surplus against the 25-26 budget, and then also a cut to the town budget of $34,000 for an even cut to the town, both Board of Ed and town, of $100,000. What this means is that we need to go back and find $66,000 somewhere within our budget to be able to send to referendum. The discussion was that the Board of Finance, in their opinion, couldn't send a 5.37, I think was the number, total budget increase to the town of New Hartford. So they chose $66,000, which is the amount of money we also had motioned and the board approved coming out of non-lapsing account. That again, if you recall, that $66,000 out of non-lapsing was to go against the volatile cost for the outplacement tuition, because again, it can't go against recurring costs. The intent of that motion was to free up funds to allow the retention of the clerical aide and the instructional assistant. So with that motion that was made at the Board of Finance and it was approved at the Board of Finance, we have been cut $66,000, maintaining the non-lapsing account application to the tuition to bring our budget increase down to, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, 4.34?
431.
431.
What I have here, yeah.
So at the end of the day, that's where we stand. We need to now discuss as a board what we want to do, which is our next item on the agenda, which is to discuss and take action on the 25-26 POE budget. So we can have discussion about that. Again, we haven't allowed our superintendent much time to think and review if there's anything that he would propose outside of the two positions that make up the $66,000 that was taken out of non-lapsing to fund it. But we can have further discussion on that. I'd like to, just before I get off that, Jeff, did I touch on anything? Is there anything you'd like to add from the meeting on Tuesday?
Sure. I'm probably at a place of more emotionality than anything else, but I'm certainly disheartened by the outcomes. I feel that the Board of Education, parents, students in our community had spoken in favor of the 499 where we were, or adding more, as we heard at public hearing. So I would have to reconvene with my team to determine what those next courses of action are going to be for $66,000. To me, it was pretty well signaled that what that intended was those positions. So we're left with no contingencies as it is. and as it was, and now furthermore. So I feel that it was undoing the good work and the intentions of the Board of Education to preserve the quality of education that we have. And now, if anything unpredictable occurs, which that's the difficulty of making any budget in any year, you have to project out what's going to happen within a year's time. But if there's anything unpredictable that occurs, then that's going to be us, coming back to the Board of Finance and requesting support and help based on the actions of Tuesday night. So ultimately, I'm disheartened and doing less with less. That's pretty much it.
Thank you, Jeff. Well, I before we get on to discussion on the 25-26 budget, the other thing, again, in fairness in what I failed to mention in my report was that they did signify that the Board of Finance had received 46 letters following the Tuesday night public budget hearing. Those letters came between Tuesday, April 1st, and the Board of Finance meeting that was held on Tuesday, that was April 8th, 2 days ago. They said they did receive 46 letters from the community that spoke about not increasing their taxes, was the 46 letters they said that they did receive. I'm told that those will become part of the meeting minutes in the public record when that gets filed. I don't know if that's been done yet as of now. I haven't seen it.
Tim, I have a question. Are we allowed to talk right now?
Yeah, we're going to move on to discussion. So I'm going to open the floor to anybody who would like to discuss.
So, so how many taxpayers do we have in the town of New Hartford? 7,000?
Approximately.
Okay, so we had 100 letters saying, please don't cut these positions and certain things that we wanted to cut. And then we had 47 people that said, we do not want you to increase our taxes. Is that about accurate?
That's the summary I have, yep.
Okay, so we have 150 people that have come out for and against on both ends of the spectrum. And we have another, 6,500, whatever, 64, I don't know the exact number, but that have not expressed anything. So the money that, and I didn't vote for that at the last board meeting to take money out of the non-lapsing account to pay for positions. I don't think it's a good idea. So are we now being asked to undo that vote and come back with another proposal? Like, can you be a little bit clearer?
No, what we need to do tonight is we need to, by direction of the Board of Finance, we need to accept their cut and motion to adopt a budget at a lesser value by $66,000.
So that brings our budget down from 499 to 434?
498 to 431.
I think it's 3-1. I'll confirm that in just a minute.
Yeah,
So the money that we were voting to put back in from the lapsing account to pay for 2 clerical positions, what did that amount to?
$66,000 that's no longer ours. It's applied to outplacement tuition.
Okay.
So I did, again, just to the Board of Education, knows I did hear from the board chairperson, of the Board of Finance, that they will have an agenda item on their Thursday meeting for any additional actions related to the budgets. And again, I say that because, again, this board as a community member has a right to be able to provide their community input to the Board of Finance should you wish, as well as anybody else within our community. But they do plan to have an agenda item on their agenda.
Just to confirm, it is 4.31 after removing the 66,000 from our overall budget.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. We have X to spend on our budget, and we're gonna leave it. At this point, we're gonna leave it up to our superintendent to decide how that gets spent. but we have a number that we just have to vote on. You know, there's not much else to do other than that, correct?
Yes. Yep. Jeff, can you provide me the revised number less $66,000, please?
Yes, sir. Previously, 10 million, don't write this down, 324,676. Remove the $66,000 Board of Finance reduction, 10,258,676 at a 431.
Yeah, would anybody like to make the motion to adopt a $10,258,676 budget at an increase of 4.31?
So move.
Moved by Tom. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Deirdre. Do we have any discussion on this? Any questions, anything that we would like to discuss before we put it to a vote?
I have a question because I'm new to the process. Essentially, do we have a choice?
No, the way that it works is that the Board of Finance has the right to tell us to cut any value within our budget, and we have a legal obligation to do so.
And the cutting the two positions at 66,000 plus the 66,000 is still taken out of the non-lapsing, right? That's what gets you to 431.
So ultimately, the Board of Education lost $66,000 cut to their budget, as well as another $66,000 of our contingency for rainy day fund. So the total is $132,000 from the Board of Education. So that, again, as I said earlier, that plus the $200,000 of surplus from the town surplus is total of taking $266,000 of contingency and applying it to this year's budget.
Tim, for clarity, the 66,000 that we applied to the was that to the special? We applied that to the
Outplacement costs.
placement cost. That isn't necessarily a hard number. That's going to be plus or minus. We were hedging some bets with that 66,000, correct?
I mean, the motion was the 66 was applied to free up funds to be able to account for those two positions, was the discussion at our last meeting. Again, the outplacement cost is a projection based on what we know today. But that outplacement was around $300,000. And right now that outplacement number in our budget is $66,000 less than that.
Okay. Yeah. So, all right. So that's not even if the target goes down, that 66 gets applied to that number.
Yep.
Okay.
The only way to replenish it would be, again, if at the end of the 25-26 school year, there was a surplus, then we can again contribute to the non-lapsing account. But again, we're sitting here this year with a projected $55,000 overage with a budget freeze. And we're going in with, as our superintendent indicated, very, very tight numbers and no contingencies for the unknown.
All right. Thank you.
Before you vote on this, can I say something?
Absolutely.
There was actually a total of 55 letters because I completed the minutes today from the Board of Finance meeting. With your minus 66,000 that they asked you to cut, the town comes down to 3.55, I believe, for
That is correct.
increase, the total tax increase.
Yes, that's correct.
The majority of those letters that were received were not from people that have children in the school system, or they had children in the school system, but that currently don't have any. And they all wanted the budget reduced because they are seniors living on a fixed income and they can't afford the higher price that we were asking for.
Benny, I'm not sure that we can discuss that until that becomes public record.
Well, it's in the minutes and it was on the recording.
All right. Is there, right? The minutes haven't been posted at this point, have they?
They will be posted by tomorrow.
Okay.
But I mean, the tone of the conversation at the meeting the other night was that there were places that we could cut. They considered consolidating schools, cutting administrative staff, finding just small places where, little amounts make up bigger amounts that we need to cut.
Yeah, respectfully, everyone has great ideas, but at the end of the day, the job of running the district is left to me, the administrative team, and the Board of Education to support that. Respectfully, everyone thinks that you could chop 5,000 here, 10,000 here, but then we're left with absolutely nothing in those lines, which makes it extremely difficult to predict anything with any accuracy. And that makes our job impossible for children and families that we serve as well. So there's another side to that story, and I'm trying to be respectful about how I state that, because my job is to advocate for children 100% of the time. That's what I do. That's my passion. That's my love line. That's what I do. And I'm passionate about it on the other side of it too. And I just want to state that, because everyone has ideas, but the implications of those ideas don't necessarily pan out to $66,000 in savings in this particular budget year. So it's making my job extremely difficult to ensure a quality education for our children in town. That's very difficult to do.
I would like to just kind of like what Jeff said, I think is important, because I do think that we as a board need to start engaging in conversations after we get through this budget season regarding reducing our operational costs over time. Everybody keeps talking about consolidation from the schools. Some people have floated regionalization. Some people have been floated like some other ideas. All of those are great ideas that we should be taking a more consistent look at. They really only come up during the budget process. And like, regardless of what happens, we can't make those choices right now and impact the budget we have to pass next year. So I just want to make sure that we're all focused on the fact that like we have to solve for the budget we have to meet this year in order to get going next year. And then I think we need to start up another work stream regarding taking a look at some of these bigger plays to reduce operational costs. We're not doing that consistently, and it always comes up in passing in a way that we're not able to take action on regularly. So we can and should make a motion to like do a study on that. I don't know if it's appropriate to do that right now. I don't think it is, regardless, like within the context of this meeting. Thanks for nodding, shaking your head, Tim, to verify that. But just, it's not helpful to the conversation that we need to have right now, unfortunately. We need to do that work outside of the in-year budget process.
Thank you, Kristen. And I'm only nodding my head no, because we are in a special meeting. We can only discuss the items on the agenda. So we can only specifically talk about the 25-26 year budget. Penny, I have a question for you, just because I've been getting requests, and when the letters were coming over previously, they were being sent to the Board of Education and asked to share with the Board of Finance. Where were the communications being delivered or sent?
They were sent to town@newhartfordct.gov, or the ones that came from Jeff's office were sent to Christine, and there was others just addressed specifically to Christine. Is that what you meant?
Yes, I just want to know again. I didn't know where they were going. Again, I was getting requests even when we were receiving them of how to communicate with the Board of Finance. So they're going to, the proper place to go is town@newhartfordct.gov.
Yes. That's what I was told when I asked for a Board of Finance email address. That was the one I was given. They don't have, the Board of Finance doesn't have their own email addresses like we do. So I was told just to send them to town@newhartfordct.gov.
Yeah.
And then everything, I believe that all goes to Christine, and then she forwarded them on to Carrie in bunches.
Yeah, thank you. Is there any further discussion?
I just have another, because I'm learning
Yeah, that's fine.
in the process. Because this is a commentary, really. It seems did we get any feedback from the Board of Finance prior to that meeting that they weren't happy with our 499?
No. I mean, the Board of Finance sent the 499 to public town hearing. Public budget hearing, with no indication of again, other than, no matter what we go forward with, it's going to be too high, right? It's always too high.
Do they typically give you
But
feedback?
there was no indications of cuts. And Frank, you were there at the town hearing, and you heard just what we all heard. A lot of community input regarding the eliminations. The Board of Education then took that input we were able to realize, right, and come to fruition some savings with the bus contract and in the notification of a retirement that freed up funds. So we were able to come back with a 4.98 is what we actually came back with. And we thought we were doing the right thing based on what we heard from the community. And I, again, in my belief is we did do the right thing. We provided a fiscally responsible budget, maintaining the best way we could the educational system that we had this current year. And I think we did it we did it the right way. I mean, we did the right thing. And the Board of Finance has the right, the opportunity after town hearing to take town hearing input and any input that they have received after that, and then make a decision as a board. And that's what they did.
Just as somebody stepping into the system, we're talking about what to do next time. And I think we should communicate that this is kind of it would have been nice to have gotten that feedback a month ago instead of now. It just seems like a weird process to me. Maybe this is the way it works, but it doesn't seem like the best way to work. That's just my comment.
And I think there was some humble opinions, that in the Board of Finance meeting, it was mentioned by one individual or one particular Board of Finance member that, again, they should have given us some indication prior to us making our revisions. But that was stated at their meeting by an individual Board of Finance member.
I mean, I think in fairness, in the original conversations, those of us that have been on the board longer said this was going to happen. So when Tom and I voted for the budget that we voted for and proposed at the level that we proposed it and agreed upon, we mentioned that the Board of Finance was likely going to ask us to cut more than what we had come back with, which is why we'd asked Jeff to come up with 5 or 6 different scenarios. And the lowest scenario Jeff came up with was actually almost close to the scenario that the Board of Finance asked us to, or is now asking us to pass. So I just want to say for the record, for all the people that are in the public that are listening to this phone call, this is a really horrible situation as board members to be in. We don't want to cut jobs. We don't want to hurt the children. We don't want to do any of that. But unfortunately, desperate times call for desperate measures. And we have a responsibility as a board to do less or to do more with less, unfortunately. And until we make some change, and I've been saying this since I've been on the board, the way we're going is not a sustainable solution. I've said it every single year and everybody looks at me like I'm crazy. It's not a sustainable solution. I've been saying for as long as I've been on the board, we need to come up with fundraising activities. We need to get and engage the PTA and the PTO to take on the fundraising activities of some of these things that we have to cut. And I've also been talking about consolidation. Because at this point, we cannot continue to sustain and go do this year after year. The budgets for special education, the teacher salaries, the teachers' benefits, it's all going up. It keeps going up. And we're trying to pay for something that we don't have. And in the last meeting we just had, we were trying to put a Band-Aid on a solution that's a major problem that nobody wants to address, which is we don't have the money and we can't go back to the taxpayers to ask them to do this. So I don't want to cut jobs. I don't want to hurt teachers. I don't want to hurt children. That's not what I'm trying to say here. But we have to do something. And I've been saying it for the last 5 years. Something else has to change. We have to do something major.
All right, is there any other discussion related to the motion that's on the floor?
I mean, not to just add a wrinkle to this, but in terms of the conversation we're having regarding looking at stuff longer term, a concern I have right now is that when we brought this up, Jeff was like, we're going to need money to study for that. So one thing that I would like the board to consider right now is, while Jeff is going back and looking at the budget, if we are serious about making longer term changes, we need to make sure that we are stating that, I think, by directing Jeff to put aside some kind of money to do that research next year. Because otherwise we're going to be in the same boat next year. And I'm not super excited about doing that, given the fact that we're already looking at cuts across the board. But if we don't have the money and resources set aside to solve this long-term problem, we're going to be spinning our wheels again. I don't know what, like, just putting it out there. I know we have to, like, yeah, our job here is to tell you how much money to spend and, like, trust that you're going to go back and do the best you can for the students in the community to make the whatever needs to work within the budget. But I'm just raising that for everybody on the board that, again, we're going to need help figuring out how to cut down the costs. And it's not accounted for in the budget right now.
Well, I don't think we can afford a consultant to come in to try to tell us and spend another 50, 60 grand to tell us that we need to consolidate. We all know we have to consolidate. That's the answer. So I know we're not supposed to talk about that on this call right now because that's not what this call is about. But we can't afford a $60,000, $100,000 consultant to come in and tell us what we already know we're going to have to do.
But do we need funds to come up with an actual action plan to do that?
I don't know. That's
Like
call
an
for
action
the-
plan, and then again a resource to, like, make it happen.
We're going to have to draw this back to the 25-26 budget, please.
Well, this is relevant to the 25-26 budget because, again,
If you're indicating or you're assuming or planning to think that we're going to go and make other cuts to the budget as we have today to free up funds for this study, I am going to adamantly say that I'm against that, opposed to it.
I understand, and I really respect that decision. I'm not like really excited about bringing this up, but the feedback from everybody had been we need to take seriously looking at this stuff, and I'm just raising the red flag that if we're not taking it seriously by dedicating time, money, and resources to it, it's not going to get done, or it's going to get done in a way the way it was brought up 8, 9, 10 years ago. I wasn't here. I don't know. When there was no community input, when people were really upset about everything that was going on and all of the factors were not taken into consideration about how to make it actually work.
And I am not saying that, again, we can at a later meeting have a discussion about that. Our current budget does not support that. If the discussions happen, it needs to be jointly discussed with the Board of Finance and with the Board of Selectmen. If funds are needed to be able to perform a study, to be able to do planning, which again, it does require to consolidate planning by professionals. That would have to be a separate discussion with them and funds coming from other sources, but not from within our budget for the 25-26 year.
I do have one question with this number as we vote. If we vote to pass this budget at 4.31, does that leave Jeff discretion to pick and choose what to cut, or do we have some input into that? Because I do think that it's important. Clearly, the band was the loudest thing that was defended at the meetings. And I mean, if we pass a 4.31 budget, is that going to be protected, I guess, is my question.
Jeff will go back to the budget and at our next meeting report back what his through his review and what his proposed eliminations are to be able to eliminate the $66,000.
So we will have another passage put for this.
We'll have another discussion regarding it. Yes, we don't want to make it a practice that the Board of Education members specifically ask for line items to be cut from the budget. Right? We have hired professionals in education to be able to propose to us those items that they believe are necessary based on what they're able to work within. So we will ask Jeff to come back at our next meeting with his proposals to remove that $66,000. But tonight, our role or our job tonight is to adopt a budget that's in line with the direction of the Board of Finance.
I will not support any cuts to any programs for children.
Is there any additional discussion? All right, seeing none, I can see everybody on the screen, I believe. So, all right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, somebody missing. Is Megan still with us? I don't see her on the screen.
Yes, she's there.
All right, why don't we just go do a roll call vote on this, please, so I can make sure we capture it in the virtual environment. So, all those are for those in favor of the motion to adopt a $10,258,676 budget and an increase of 4.31. Frank,
I vote yes.
Benny,
I'll vote yes as long as it doesn't affect the children.
Tom,
Yes.
Deirdre,
Yes.
Eric,
No.
Kristen,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
all right, that motion passes.
Tim, I think you have to go on record.
Yep. Tim.
What's that?
You have to vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. I am also voting no. All right, that is our agenda for today. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Deirdre. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Eric. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Tim, I know the meeting's over.